I would tell my children to be more compassionate. It's always easy to fall into driving hard numbers, making sure we grow, but how do you stay compassionate during your time at work?
Visionaries, innovators, agenda setters, all with their finger on the pulse of tomorrow's tech. One platform bringing them all together. Slated for Tomorrow, a podcast series presented by Zensar. In today's episode, part 2 of a conversation with Anant Goenka of the RPG Group.
In 23, you were also appointed as the Vice President FICCI. FICCI's charter, of course, is to look at policy change for India at a whole, keeping in mind all the macroeconomic changes for 25. If you were to list the top 2 or 3 things that you feel India definitely needs to continue this era of growth that we're seeing from a policy perspective, what would that be?
We've taken on 4 priorities in FICCI in the recent times, which we want to take forward. One is Make in India, farm prosperity, climate change, and women empowerment. I spend personally a lot of time on the Make in India initiative. We feel that manufacturing is going to be the core for economic growth and job creation. While we are seeing good economic growth, job creation still has some way to go, and we are working in terms of with the government in terms of helping policies on how do we make sure manufacturing increases, private investment increases, global investors come in, and some of those areas. A couple of initiatives within that is how do we increase the share of R&D in our investment so that more innovation comes out of India. You have global brands that emerge out of India is one area. The second area that we are working on is MSME growth. So MSMEs often get stuck at about 500 crore, 700 crore turnover. How do we look at aiding them in terms of building their capabilities towards teaching them to invest in marketing, go-to-market, R&D, and some of these capabilities so that they can break through that threshold and reach a larger size. Industrial parks is another area which we were working with them on, which has now become a large policy and initiative for the government. So these are the 3 or 4 areas that we are working on in FICCI.
Speaking about some of the charters at FICCI, you were speaking about sustainability and women empowerment. It's not just a FICCI charter. I know you personally also through the RPG Foundation and at the group company personally a champion when it comes to these 2 areas. Tree plantation drives, for instance, through the foundation, a higher percentage of women being employed, in companies like Zensar compared to a lot of the other companies in the industry. What's your message for CXOs, CEOs who are watching this interview about how they can marry CSR philanthropy into the core values of the business?
To me, I'd say I can share what we believe in. We believe in doing good. We think that there is a clear shift in the past where shareholder was most important to stakeholder importance, and therefore government, society, and other stakeholders are getting more and more important, and it is our duty as citizens, as corporate citizens, to do good for the environment. What we have taken on are 3 or 4 initiatives such as education, employability, heritage conservation and revival as core areas of our CSR work. We try and link some of it to areas that we operate in. So very often they would be around factories where we are located. We would be doing social work around there. It would also be linked to that period in time. For example, during COVID times, we were setting up fever clinics in Maharashtra. That was something else that we took on. So I think it is part of what we believe in. And on women empowerment as well, I think 50% of our population is women. If you look at corporates, still the share of women in the workforce is very low. I think it's our duty to have women into it, and I think the value add of just diversity, whether it is different, whether it is gender diversity, people with disabilities, educational diversity, all adds to innovation as well. Today, if you have all CAs and MBAs coming in to solve problems, you will get a very similar kind of solution, whereas if you get people with English history or kind of a background or Greek mythology, they will solve a problem in a very different way. So having this clash of different points of view.
What major do you have, just out of curiosity?
So mine is the boring. I studied finance in undergrad and management in grad. But I did study a lot of fine arts, psychology, and these were subjects that I really enjoyed, and political science. So even though I majored in finance, I'd say subjects that I loved was international relations and psychology.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So I'd say in the end, diversity leads to innovation, and I think what we've again done in our factories is we are aiming towards having much more women in the workforce. I'd say if you look at again our old factories 30 years ago, our Bhandup factory would have a need that we need a man who is 5'7" plus weighing so much weight and so on, because there's so much of physical work that was needed. This was how factories operated in maybe the 70s and 80s. But with automation having coming in, there is no role that a woman cannot do. And now we have the same job done by a young 20-year-old girl and doing it as if not more successfully than what was happening. So to that extent, we are constantly thriving towards getting more and more women in the workforce. We also work with the government to make sure that, for example, night shift was always a problem. So how do we get women to be allowed to work in the night shift? And now when they get dropped off home to their homes, there is very often a sign taken from the parents saying that okay, they have reached home safely. So making sure safety and some of these precautions are taken on, and just making it a much more diverse and women-friendly place to work.
Going back to what you were saying on Make in India, critics of that, and I'm sure you're well aware of what's being said, often feel that India should be marrying more technology, moving to more of a service industry rather than manufacturing space, which is how the world is moving. Your thoughts on that?
I think we've seen great growth on services. The last 15 years has been the rise of TCS, Infosys, Wipro and large IT companies, and they continue to grow well. Yes, absolutely. So I think to that extent, services has really seen a great success story. Manufacturing is still about 16 to 17% of our GDP. There is a clear shift from China to other parts of the world in terms of manufacturing. While services will continue to grow, I think manufacturing is absolutely very important. India is looking at being Atmanirbhar, import substitution, and India for India is going to be one theme, but India for the world is also going to be another theme that will be very important.
And you believe that will be achieved through Make in India? Absolutely.
I think just the way Vietnam, I'd say, took advantage of the China plus one maybe 15 years ago or 10 years ago or so. I think it is now India's moment to look at manufacturing and see growth. And that manufacturing may start with assembly initially, but over time we have to move to more and more value addition. And that we are seeing with the success of the electronic sector as a prime example in terms of shift towards clear value added manufacturing.
What is 2025 looking like to you? We've heard the IMF forecast as far as continued growth in the US economy, slowing down of the European economy, lots of macroeconomic shifts happening, wars that we thought were perhaps being contained, not so much. Is there one word that you can use to sum up what 25 will perhaps look like?
I would say continued protectionism or nationalism may continue to be there with Trump having won the US election. We will see nearshoring, Make in America continuing to get some more importance, and therefore that result flowing into other countries where people will continue to put up a few barriers to protecting their own national interests is something that we will maybe see in 2025.
Okay, I want to just talk about also Anant as a person and how that influences your management style. First and foremost, I want to talk about fitness. I understand it's very important to you. You run, you play a lot of sports. As an entrepreneur, because RPG at the end of the day, it's an entrepreneurial company. As an entrepreneur, why is it important to have this mix and this balance?
Yeah, no, I think it's important for life in terms of just exercise and maintaining your physical self. To me, it is about I just feel happier when I work out. I have a great day. I feel more motivated, more positive, and whether it's the serotonin or dopamine having its own play, I think it's absolutely very useful to me personally to exercise. And I think for being more productive in the end, there are so many more additional benefits of just doing something. To me, the few areas that I again spend time on is I like to play a sport. So currently I'm spending more time on playing badminton. I enjoy running. I do a little bit of yoga and I spend a little bit of time on the gym. So I keep mixing it up in some way during the week, but between the four, I try and do something or the other every day.
That contrasts with a lot of the commentary we're hearing of late, where renowned CEOs are saying work 70 hours a week, that's the only way you should be doing it. It's really refreshing hearing this coming from you. You have young children. As they enter the workforce, what's the one piece of advice that you would give them?
I would tell my children to be more compassionate and keep that in your way of working. It's always easy to fall into driving hard numbers, making sure we grow, and that is the easier thing to do. But how do you stay compassionate during your time at work? That's my one message.
That echoes something that I read your Mr. Anant Goenka had recently said on social media, where he said Indians in some sense hate billionaires, and unless they're billionaires who are giving back their money, etc. And he was quoting examples of the greatest, Mr. Tata, the late Mr. Tata, Azim Premji, etc. So you feel that also becomes really important, that one is compassionate but also giving back?
Yeah, I think it is our duty to give back. We are very lucky where we are born, and I think personally I'm filled with gratitude in terms of my where I am in life, and I think therefore and the world is unequal. It is our duty to give back and help as much as we can, and it's yes, it sounds a little philosophical, but I believe in that. Yeah.
Speaking of philosophical, when talking about your favorite books, you quoted a lot of management books. I know what you've said in this interview contrasts with it, but I still need to ask, when you're not at work, are you only thinking about work? What books have perhaps inspired you that you're able to bring into your working style?
When I'm out of work, I'm not so much thinking about work. If I'm with family, it is more family time, or if I'm playing a sport, I spend time on thinking about that at that moment. Of course, work does play at the back once in a while, but it's not that I'm a 24-hour workaholic thinker. I'd say a few of the books that have influenced me, one I would say is a book called No Rules, Rules. It's a book on the story of Netflix, written by the founder of Netflix, and to me what I learned there was the importance of values. I think Netflix has defined a few set of values, and what I learned was how they truly live those values. Many companies have a set of values which are there, and you may not be living it as passionately. It could be on the wall, or you may be living it at a surface level, but the depth at which they live their values such as radical candor is just at another level. In any meeting you can put up your hand and critique somebody in public, which is quite jarring for many organizations. So some of these areas I found to be quite amazing, that how can we live our values in a far more explicit way. Another book that comes to my mind is a book called Drive by Dan Pink.
Okay.
And he speaks about the surprising art of motivating people. And very often we link motivation to money and bonus, but he debunks that theory, or doesn't believe in that theory, and says there are three things that motivate people. One is autonomy, or freedom. Second is mastery, the desire to keep learning and growing. And the third is purpose, that what we are doing, are we doing something beyond making money in our company? For example, CEAT's purpose is to make mobility safer and smarter every day. So that is what should drive, or purpose should drive people to come to work every day. So these three things I use as my checklist to motivate people.
Speaking for words, actually, I must ask you, you've been on pretty much every 40 under 40 list. I'm sure you were on every 30 under 30 list. If there was a 20 under 20, I'm sure you'd have been on that. What does that mean for you? And is there anything that you're perhaps aspiring to somewhere? We haven't seen you, seems unlikely, but must ask.
No, I think these are things which I'd never thought of. I think I just thought about running the company and just having a daily effective working day, and these things come along and they always motivational or give you another boost in terms of your own confidence or validation that you're doing good work. But I think of it as a positive milestone in terms of trying to be an effective leader or lead RPG in a way.
One last question before I let you go, Anant. You were speaking about the 80-20 rule when it came to running your businesses. What's the 80-20 you apply to your personal life?
On my personal life, I think for me, family is most important. So there, I think if I'm able to give adequate time to my kids, and what I try and do is largely rituals. So if there is, when my kids were younger, dropping them to school in the morning was very important. Now it is about having breakfast with them in the morning, having dinner with them as often as I can, trying and limit travel as little as possible, or just kind of doing it within 24 hours and coming back. So it is about these habits and rituals that you set forth for giving family priority. The same thing I'd say for health is the other area where I try and get my workout out of the way in the morning. Sometimes if I'm not able to do at one time, I would carry a change in my car and change in the car and jog back home. And when it takes about 30 minutes to go by car home or a 30-minute jog back. So in the end, net you're actually not really losing any time because of the traffic of Bombay. So to that extent, these are small tricks and micro habits in a way which you develop to manage your daily lifestyle.
Fascinating, Anant. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you helping us kick off really this podcast series.
No, thank you for having me, and lovely catching up with you. Thank you so much.